At 75 years old, the actor who once embodied the very image of Hollywood charm has arrived at a stage of life that few people imagined he would face. Richard Gere built his career on characters defined by romance, elegance, and quiet strength, becoming a symbol of sophistication for audiences across generations. Yet behind the polished image that millions admired for decades lies a far more layered and complicated story. As time continues to reshape both his career and his personal world, a series of unexpected hardships has gradually cast a shadow over what many believed would be a peaceful and reflective chapter of his later years. For fans who spent decades watching him light up the screen, the realities of this stage of his life can feel almost heartbreaking to witness. Long before he became one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces, Gere carried emotional struggles that quietly shaped the foundation of his inner life. He grew up in a modest household in upstate New York, where those around him often described him as thoughtful, introspective, and somewhat reserved. Although he appeared calm and composed on the surface, he frequently felt a deep sense of isolation beneath that exterior. As a teenager, Gere struggled with feelings of alienation, often sensing that he existed slightly outside the world around him. Despite excelling in school and demonstrating clear talent in music and performance, success in those areas did little to ease the internal tension that followed him during those early years. When he entered young adulthood and began pursuing acting, the emotional complexity he carried only intensified. The theater world, known for its fierce competition and constant uncertainty, amplified his feelings of disconnection. Looking back on that time later in life, Gere described those years as a period of profound psychological loneliness. It was not simply a matter of being physically alone. Rather, it was the deeper sensation of being misunderstood and spiritually adrift. He has spoken openly about the restless search for meaning that followed him through those formative years, a search that fame and public recognition would never truly satisfy. Rather than breaking him, however, those early struggles ultimately became transformative. The discomfort forced him to look inward and reflect deeply on his own life. That period of introspection eventually led him towards spiritual exploration. During his 20s, Gere began studying meditation and later embraced Tibetan Buddhism. Within its teachings, he discovered a philosophy that helped him understand suffering, compassion, and the importance of mindfulness. Over time, he developed a close personal relationship with Dalai Lama, whose spiritual guidance played a profound role in shaping his worldview and the values that would guide his life moving forward. In December 1991, Gere's personal life entered the spotlight in a dramatic way when he married supermodel Cindy Crawford. Their relationship instantly became one of the most photographed and discussed romances in Hollywood. At that time, Gere was already a well-established leading man known for major films such as Pretty Woman, while Crawford stood at the height of her global modeling fame. The pairing of a celebrated film star and one of the world's most recognizable models fascinated the media, and their relationship quickly became the subject of relentless public attention. Despite the glamour that surrounded their union, their marriage faced quiet challenges away from the cameras. Tabloids frequently emphasized the couple's 17-year age difference, and both individuals were navigating demanding international careers that required constant travel. Gere devoted much of his energy to filmmaking and spiritual pursuits, while Crawford's modeling career took her across continents and into the busiest fashion capitals. Under such circumstances, maintaining privacy proved nearly impossible. Persistent rumors and speculative headlines only intensified the pressure surrounding their relationship. By 1995, after less than 4 years together, the couple finalized their divorce. Although they did not have children during their marriage, the separation carried significant emotional weight for Gere. The collapse of such a high-profile relationship marked one of the first major turning points in his personal life that unfolded under intense public scrutiny. Experiencing heartbreak in private is difficult enough, but for Gere it occurred beneath the constant gaze of global media. Years later, it seemed that Gere had found a more stable and grounded relationship when he began a life with actress and former model Carrie Lowell. Their relationship appeared far more private than his earlier marriage. The couple welcomed their son, Homer James Jigme Gere, in 2000 and later married in 2002. For many years, they maintained a relatively quiet family life, deliberately avoiding the constant spotlight that had surrounded Gere's earlier relationships. However, even that quieter life eventually faced challenges. By September 2013, news emerged that Gere and Lowell had separated. Reports at the time suggested that differences in personality and lifestyle contributed to the breakdown of the marriage. Gere was widely known for his contemplative nature and spiritually oriented approach to life, while Lowell was often described as having a more socially active lifestyle. Although neither publicly discussed the details of their private struggles, it soon became clear that reconciliation was unlikely. What followed was not a quick resolution, but an extended and emotionally demanding legal process. Their divorce proceedings lasted nearly 3 years before finally being concluded in October 2016. The lengthy negotiations reportedly involved complex discussions over substantial financial assets, including real estate properties, along with arrangements concerning their son. Though many of the specifics remained confidential, the prolonged timeline demonstrated how complicated and emotionally draining the separation had become. That same year brought another deeply personal moment of loss. In July 2016, Gere's mother, Doris and Tiffany Gere, passed away at the age of 91. Although she had lived a long and fulfilling life, her passing marked the quiet closing of an important chapter in his world. Losing a parent whose influence shaped his character long before fame entered his life carried profound emotional weight. Doris had long been known as a devoted mother and a steady presence within the Gere family household. Growing up in a disciplined but modest environment in upstate New York, Gere often credited both of his parents for instilling the values of humility, compassion, and hard work. His mother, in particular, embodied patience and emotional stability, qualities that later echoed through his spiritual practices and humanitarian efforts. While Gere has generally kept his private grief away from headlines, he has acknowledged over the years how strongly his parents influenced his moral compass. The empathy that appears in both his activism and his choice of emotionally complex film roles can often be traced back to the nurturing environment of his childhood. For that reason, losing his mother represented more than the death of a loved one. It symbolized the end of a lifelong bond stretching back to his earliest memories. Her passing occurred during a turbulent period when he was also navigating the final stages of his prolonged divorce. In that context, the loss felt even heavier. For decades, his mother's presence had represented stability, family history, and unconditional support. Even at 91, her existence symbolized continuity and reassurance. Years earlier, Gere had also faced a frightening physical accident. In 2004, while enjoying one of his favorite outdoor activities, horseback riding, he experienced a sudden and dangerous fall. Known as an avid outdoorsman, Gere often turned to riding as a way to relax and reflect. On that occasion, however, his horse unexpectedly became distressed and violently threw him to the ground. The fall was abrupt and forceful, leaving him stunned and injured. Although the accident did not cause life-threatening trauma, he suffered a broken hand. What made the situation even more concerning was the fact that he had been riding alone without a phone. With no immediate way to contact help, Gere had to gather himself despite the shock and pain and make his way back on foot. The injury temporarily forced him to step away from his routine while he received medical treatment and allowed time for recovery. Although it did not derail his long-term professional commitments, the experience served as a powerful reminder of how quickly ordinary moments can become dangerous. Horses are magnificent animals, but they remain powerful and unpredictable, capable of sudden reactions that can leave even experienced riders vulnerable. Another dramatic moment in Gere's life occurred in April 2007, when he became the center of international controversy during an AIDS awareness event in India. The public program, designed to promote safe sex and reduce the stigma surrounding HIV prevention, featured Gere alongside Bollywood star Shilpa Shetty. During an energetic moment on stage intended to draw attention to the cause, Gere hugged Shetty and playfully kissed her on the cheek several times. Although the gesture was meant as a light-hearted show of support for the campaign, photographs of the interaction quickly spread throughout Indian media. Some conservative groups reacted strongly, arguing that the public display was inappropriate. Protests erupted in several cities, and legal complaints were filed accusing the two celebrities of violating public obscenity laws. In the weeks that followed, lower courts in India issued arrest warrants for both Gere and Shetty. What began as a moment meant to promote a serious health initiative quickly escalated into a heated cultural controversy. Demonstrators burned effigies of Gere in protest, while others demanded accountability. At the same time, supporters defended the purpose of the event, emphasizing that the interaction had been consensual and occurred within the context of an AIDS awareness campaign rather than as an act intended to offend. Shetty herself publicly downplayed the situation, expressing surprise at the scale of the backlash. Eventually, higher courts intervened, suspending the warrants and later dismissing the obscenity charges entirely. The legal proceedings brought the controversy to a formal close. Gere never returned to India to face arrest, and with time, the issue gradually faded from international headlines. Many years later, another serious challenge emerged in February 2023 when Gere experienced a frightening health scare while vacationing with his family in Mexico. What initially appeared to be a routine respiratory illness quickly developed into pneumonia, a condition that can be particularly dangerous for people in their 70s. At 73 years old at the time, Gere required hospitalization for monitoring and treatment. News of his condition spread rapidly, causing concern among fans worldwide. Reports indicated that other members of his family were also experiencing illness during the trip, but Gere's condition required the most intensive medical attention. Pneumonia is an infection that inflames the air sacs in the lungs and can cause severe breathing difficulties, fever, fatigue, and potentially life-threatening complications if not treated quickly. For older adults, the risks can be even greater due to weakened immune responses and the possibility of secondary complications. Gere reportedly remained under medical care for several days before being discharged to continue recovering. Representatives later confirmed that he was improving, but the incident served as a powerful reminder that even individuals who maintain disciplined lifestyles focused on meditation, yoga, and wellness are not immune to sudden illness. Only weeks after recovering from pneumonia, Gere experienced another profound personal loss. In March 2023, his father, Homer George Gere, passed away at the extraordinary age of 100. While reaching such an age reflects a long and meaningful life, the loss of a parent remains deeply emotional regardless of one's own age. Homer Gere had long been a steady and guiding influence in his son's life. Richard grew up watching his father demonstrate discipline, humility, and civic responsibility in their modest Methodist household in upstate New York. Although Homer worked professionally in the insurance industry, he also dedicated significant time to community service. Over the years, the connection between father and son extended beyond family ties into a shared commitment to humanitarian causes. Gere has frequently credited his parents with shaping his sense of compassion and global awareness. His advocacy for human rights and his involvement in charitable work can be traced back to the lessons he learned at home, particularly from his father's quiet integrity and moral clarity. Even as Gere achieved worldwide fame, his father remained grounded and supportive, providing perspective far removed from Hollywood spotlight. The timing of Homer's passing, so soon after Gere's own hospitalization, added additional emotional weight to the loss. It became a period filled with reflection about aging, health, and the legacy left behind by loved ones. Another controversy surfaced in 2022 when Gere purchased a historic Connecticut estate that had previously belonged to legendary singer-songwriter Paul Simon. The property carried significant sentimental value because it had served as a long-time family home filled with memories. At the time of the sale, reports suggested that preserving the estate's legacy was an important consideration. However, in 2024, Gere sold the property to real estate developers. Soon afterward, plans were announced to demolish the house and redevelop the land into a residential subdivision. The news sparked disappointment among preservation advocates and fans who believed the home carried cultural significance. The controversy intensified in 2025 when Simon's daughter, Lulu Simon, publicly criticized Gere. In emotional social media posts, she accused him of breaking what she described as a promise to protect the property. Her comments framed the situation not simply as a business decision, but as the loss of childhood memories and family history. The debate quickly spread online, with people discussing the balance between property rights and moral responsibility toward historically meaningful homes. Although Gere did not engage in an extended public response, the situation created uncomfortable headlines and renewed debate about legacy and preservation. While not a personal tragedy in the traditional sense, the dispute carried emotional weight because of its connection to family heritage and public trust. For an actor whose reputation has long been associated with humanitarian values, the controversy illustrated how business decisions can become deeply personal when history and memory are involved. What do you think about Richard Gere and the challenges he has faced throughout his life? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. If you found this story informative, remember to like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again in the next video.